All right, so we have our tank installed. There is springs that go underneath these mounting bolts so that it will allow some flexibility there if and when the truck flexes. However, since this has got a double frame, it's not going to be doing much flexing in behind the cab. But we've got that all mounted on there. I ended up picking up 50 gallons of oil from Tractor Supply. This was like $39 or $40 per pail. It was the cheapest that I could find. And I picked up some oil for the transmission as well. We've got the PTO installed. The hydraulic pump is also installed along with our bracket, which we'll climb underneath there in a little bit. We'll show you what everything looks like on the bottom side of the transmission. But I had to get a couple of parts for Alex's truck out to Tracy Road Equipment. And I said, well, as long as I'm here, I better get a 5-gallon pail of oil for the transmission. And this is the oil that they advise using on these Eaton transmissions. It is Mobile Delvac 1 transmission fluid, synthetic transmission fluid, SAE 40. Eaton approved lubricant. That pail right there was just over $300. Now, I drained the oil out. I was going to reinstall the oil that came out. I don't know how much oil these transmissions hold. They usually hold about 4 or 5 gallons. There's only about 2.5 or 3 that came out of it. So we'll pump that oil in there. We'll see how much it actually holds, and we'll see if it was actually that low. So we'll get that in there, and then I need to dump the hydraulic oil in there before we get working on our valve. Now, if you recall, there was a while ago that we put a hydraulic tank on a truck. I don't know if it was that one that we put on Alex's or if it was one of the automatics that we put a tank on and the damn thing leaked. It had a spot in the weld that wasn't any good. So we had to drain the oil all out, and we had the tank welded again, and yeah, just a pain in the ass to take that all back off of there, to drain it and do all that stuff. So we'll go ahead and get some oil put in it. I also had to lengthen the leads for our trailer tail lights, and then we've got an auxiliary plug here that has the there's a couple of wires in there, one for a work light, one for a lift axle on the diller, and one for a spread plate in this auxiliary plug here. I had to lengthen these wires because that plug assembly came to about there. So we've got them a little longer. The bracket's going to go right here. Both of them plugs will mount to it along with the valve for the air valve for the trailer. So let's go ahead and get some oil in this. All right, we got this oil in this transmission. We'll just crawl underneath here and show you what this all looks like down in underneath here. We ended up removing the PTO on this, and we put a different PTO on there. So this first red item is the PTO. This is not a hot shift PTO. We do have a hot shift that is on Alex's truck. When they did the clutch on this, they ended up not hooking up the air line that went to the other PTO, which is no big deal because we ended up removing that other one anyways. There's a little bit of oil on this from when we filled the transmission. So we have the direct mounted hydraulic pump mounted to the back side of the PTO. And when you do that, you have to roll that underneath here. you have to put a support on the back of the pump. So this support is supported from the studs on the pump, and then it's bolted into the transmission. They give you, I buy these brackets from buyers, and you get them in pieces and then you just weld them together, and that's what we have here. So we'll hook up our suction and our pressure lines up to the back side of this pump. There is side ports on this as well, but I find it is better to go right out of the back of the pump. We'll come out of the pump, and then we can go right up to the tank for our suction, and then to the valve body for with our pressure line. Now you might be wondering, why did you have to change the oil on the transmission? Well, we had to drain the oil out of the transmission so that we could remove the old PTO. Now the guys that replaced the clutch, in order for them to get the transmission out, they would have had to have removed the PTO as well. Therefore, they would have had to drain the oil out of the transmission and then install the oil back in it. However, you can see how much oil is left in this pail that had the new oil in it. There's maybe a gallon left. Therefore, I used about 4 gallons, and there's about 3, 2.5 or 3 in that pail. Where did the rest of the oil go? And why did they not fill that transmission up to the level it needs to be at? Well, they're incompetent. That's why. So that's another problem with these guys doing this clutch on this, but we'll leave it at that, and it is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and hold on to that pail of oil and make sure we don't use it in anything else. So now what we're going to do is we are going to install hydraulic oil into this tank. We do have a gauge, a temperature sight gauge to go on this side, and then there's a cap and a breather that goes up on top of the tank as well. And then we could start building our hydraulic valve body mounting plate. But before I get into doing that, I have to put a belt tensioner on this. This has got the DD16 in it. The DD15 is the same, and we had to rob the belt tensioner off of this truck on a Sunday for the Western Star. So we're gonna get the oil in, and we'll get this belt tensioner on there, because I want to let this sit after the oil's in it and make sure we don't have any leaks develop, because I don't want to wait until last minute and then decide that we have a leak or two. So we'll get back with you here in a little bit. Alright, this is where we're going to sign off with this video. We've got this tank filled, and we'll come back after it's sat a while and see if it's leaking anywhere. So that's going to do it for this one. We'll catch you at the next video. Thanks for watching. Well, we're kind of picking up right where we left off with the last video, and I don't know if some of you picked up on it or not, but this tank is actually leaking. Go figure. It's leaking right here, right there, and then there's another little tiny spot right in here somewhere. So we've got 50 gallons of oil in it, and I let it sit overnight. As soon as I come in the shop here this morning, I could see a wet spot on the floor, and then when I came around to the back side of the tank, We've got some spots that are not welded completely. You can clearly see that their weld dipped down a little bit. Right here, I'm not sure what that is. It's probably a spot that they didn't grind good enough when they got up to the diamond plate spot or the diamond checker itself. But we'll have to get that off of there. I've got an aluminum spool gun, but I would rather have this TIG welded. I do have a TIG welder that I've gotten from Vevor, but I have not fired it up yet. So we're just gonna take this down to a neighbor, have him TIG weld it. And them 2 spots, 3 spots, and try it again. We've got 3M on the ball valves, so I can't take them apart. I've got to leave this metal frame on the tank, and we're just going to have to deal with it like that. It is a royal pain in the ass to have to deal with something like this. I have had 2 tanks now that have leaked after installation, and I'm not too happy about that. Both of them came from buyers. I do have another new tank over there on the floor, and they will warranty something like this, but it's a pain in the ass. You got to box the thing back up. If you don't have a tank to use in place of it, you're going to wait for shipment. Then you've got to deal with shipping it back, so it's just easier to have it fixed and get compensated that way. So we'll get this off of there, and it's just one more delay. That's all. Yeah.
Can I do that up there?
No, you can open them up. It doesn't matter. I can open them up there too.
Well, whatever. You want to spill it.
All right, so we've got this fixed. Welded here and right there. Setting back on the truck. Local guy did this. Guy by the name of Jeff Unger. He lives just a few miles away from here, and he fixed this up quickly. And now we'll pour the oil back in it. And he pressure tested it right while I was there, and we're in good shape here now. All right, so we've got our oil installed, and I went ahead and put this belt tensioner on there as well. We had to rob it off of there for the Western Star, so we're just kind of letting our pails drain into each other here, and then we'll dump them all back into each other. But what we're working on now is the valve body. We're assembling it. I was waiting for an outlet cover. That has come, and we could put our work sections together, put our handles on, and then we've got our pneumatic shift cylinders here. Then we'll get it laid over onto our channel iron that's underneath that weld mask. Cut the legs off of it. So this will lay over the top of the frame on the outsides. We'll drill a couple of holes in it here for some clamp tabs, and then we'll have to drill the holes in for the valve body itself. Then we'll get that stuff primed, get it into paint, and then we can install it on the truck and try to get this job here done. So what I have is the outlet cover. I've got that face down. And we'll put our O-rings in on this work section here. The single acting valve body is going to go on first. And then we will stack our double acting motor spool valve, which we have to change the spool on this one because this one has a cylinder spool in it. And then this one we'll have to put a single acting spool on, which is this one here. So we've just got some assembly to do, and we'll get to it here. So we've got actually 2 spools sitting on the bench here. This here is a cylinder spool. You can see the gap is not as long in this section. So this motor spool has a longer gap because when you change functions on this spool, when you go back to neutral, for example, it'll just let oil free flow past this area here, therefore letting any kind of a hydraulic motor slow down. This will not hold a cylinder in place. This valve here is a double acting cylinder spool. When it's in neutral, oil doesn't flow to either spot. When you control this spool one way or the other, it's going to push oil out of either one of these ports. When you push oil out the port and then return back to neutral, it will hold the pressure in place, therefore a truck hoist or what have you. If you're raising it up, you can raise it with a motor spool, but all it's going to do is it's going to raise itself all the way to the top, and then just as soon as you let pressure off, it's going to come back down again. It won't hold into place. Got a 3,500 psi pressure relief valve that we're going to put in the inlet cover. That'll be system pressure for each valve work section is going to work off of the system pressure. So the hydraulic pump's going to come in on this side. The max rating on that hydraulic pump is anywhere from 4 to 4,500 psi. Once it hits an obstruction, it will push by this relief and return oil back to tank, not through here, but it'll end up pushing itself open, and it'll go all the way through the center of the valve, and then it'll go out the outlet back to tank here. You can get high boys in these style valves, and what there is a port relief for each port. So if you had a port relief for each port, you could get away with not running a relief valve in the inlet cover. However, you always should, and then it would relieve pressure off of either port. So we'll go ahead and get this assembled. Got some O-rings to install, and then we'll just stack it and then bolt it. All right, so we now have 70 gallons of hydraulic oil in this tank. It's filled right to about there. I probably should only put about 60 in it. But once it loads the hydraulic pump, gets oil in the suction line and then the return line coming back to the valve body, the filter and all that, hopefully it uses up about 4 gallons. So we've got a slight mock-up here with how we're going to mount this valve assembly. We've got our return coming back through the filter. I was originally going to put the hose down below and go right to the tank. However, the cross member's kind of low and I'm gonna have to jog it a couple of different times. I would have to cut a hole in this back plate here that's going to protect the filter. So we're just going to run the hose over the top. This hose is a little short, but the hose is going to set something like that there, and that's going to be our return line back to the tank. I've got this 6-inch piece of channel here that's going to come up into the back side of it, so when we put our deck plates on, we'll be protecting that filter. We'll have to cut this out for the filter, and then this back side will protect the decking coming up to it, and it'll give us a spot here. There won't be a 6-inch gap, because if I ran the decking, it would be there like that. Somebody's going to get their foot caught down in here. This is going to be open. I do have a couple of options. I could put a piece of 6-inch channel in there, run it across, I could do that. Or if I could find some of that decking material that is only about, it's not quite, a foot would probably work for that, but I need to get it kind of in underneath this here. So a 6-inch piece of channel iron like I have here will work there too. So we need to pull this all apart, put pipe tape on it, put it all back together, and then I'll bring a piece of flat bar in here to just kind of come up and support this filter housing. This piping is strong enough to hold that in place, but we're just going to put a little something extra on there. I might decide not to at the same time, but we need to get this apart, pipe tape it all up, get it all back on there, figure out where the filter is going to lay on this, and get this guy cut out, and then get it put back into place so that we've got a deck there. And then we could pull this all back off, get it painted up, and put it back together here. It's probably going to be tomorrow morning once we get that done. So we'll go ahead and do a few more things here, and we'll show you what things look like once we get it all together correctly. Alright, so here is what things look like. I left the back leg on this channel iron, cut the front leg off, got a hole in it so that we can remove this filter. Return line's going to hook up right here like that. This hose, of course, is not the right one that I'm going to use, but it's the one that jumped into place here. So I've got a couple of holes in this for the hold down tabs. However, this one's not going to work where it is because the cross member's right there. So we need to re-drill a hole here and re-drill one there. Put a flat bar in to grab the front of the cross member there. Frame flange on either side, and then we'll make a tab for this one as well. Now this here we could take off, and I'm going to paint this now so that it can be drying and we can get it back on there. However, before I do that, Alex has just pulled her truck in, and she's got to change a brake canister on it. So here is hers. Hers is the same exact truck, and we've got her valve body on there mounted like so, but obviously this has got the frame mounted tank on the side where we removed the fuel tank so that we could get this hydraulic tank in there, and we're going to go ahead and put that other tank on this when we get time. It will probably be summertime or so. So we'll go ahead and help her get that together. This one I did a little different. I still used a piece of 6-inch channel, but I've got the back leg cut off, filters up through, and then we torched a hole to get the suction line so that I ran that back down to the tank here. So, all right, so I had a telemarketer phone call right at the end, or during the end of that last segment here. So this truck needs a canister on the front right drive axle. We're going to get that off in there. We have not had to replace a canister on one of these disc brake units before, and all this has is just a like a little pedestal on the end of the rod right there. It does not have a clevis on it. So we got that one caged. Jared's got this one caged too. We removed the vice grips that he had on the airline because obviously it was just leaking. So we'll go ahead and get that off of there. I'm not sure if I have to torch these bolts or not, but we'll go ahead and get that removed. It looks like it's a lot easier than doing a drum brake style truck. So let's get after it here. Alex is up helping Sarah hook up her trailer, so we'll just go ahead and get this started and get it on there for us so these guys can get to hauling manure. Alright, so we've got this just about off of there. Both nuts came off of the canister, which I thought I'd have to torch them. Did not. Just get this guy out of here. Just like that. And we'll go over to the bench and get our new one. I could show you what this looks like. This just pushes into, I don't know if you guys can see that good enough. It just pushes into that guy right there. So we'll get this over to the bench and swap out our fittings. Bolt the new one into place. Alright, we've got our fittings swapped over. Got this new one caged. We'll go ahead and install it.
I don't know. Probably the bone. Go ahead, you guys.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I gotta tell you, Alex, this job ain't helping my ribs at all.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really not.
Oh my God.
Always complaining.
These old guys, I tell you, they whine and moan and gee. Oh, oh, oh.
If you're gonna act like that, why don't you just go home for the rest of the day?
Yeah,
Well, if you're gonna have that kind of attitude, I will. This job is going relatively easy.
don't say that.
The hardest part is getting up and down.
Oh.
Oh my God. Maybe I should have you put it back together here.
Yeah, you could, except I don't know how to do that.
It's all put together. All you gotta do is tighten it up.
Oh, okay.
So,
Great.
but as long as I'm down here,
Yeah, you
I'm
might
gonna
as
stay
well.
right here.
You probably do a better job than I
And then if I have to get up, I'm not coming back down here.
Okay.
You're gonna have to finish it.
Oh, God.
Oh boy. This ratchet wrench doesn't like to work down here too good.
You send somebody to get parts in Syracuse in the near future. We need stuff in the Mecca.
What do you need?
Bolts.
Okay. Oh, come on. Wrench. Doesn't want to come off. Come on, wrench. There. Got that wrench off. There's just not quite enough room to allow this ratchet wrench in there. But I don't know if another brand would work better or not. See if Jared's got a 15/16 ratchet wrench. This is a Tecton here, and it fits kind of tight. Oh. Got Sarah all hooked up good like?
Yeah. She's just super worried about it.
What's that?
She's been super paranoid about it.
What do you got for Jacob to do?
Oh, that 7290 to get washed. That ain't on a manure pump, is it?
No, I was thinking about using it, but I don't have to.
I could get washed and cleaned up. I've got my plates about ready to paint, so I'm gonna paint them in a minute. I'm just gonna PR that stuff and then put paint right over it so I don't have to wait for primer to dry.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
Good sandblast that actually, that will never wear off.
Oh, earbud fell out. Oh, earbuds. I don't know how the hell the telemarketers are gonna call me if I don't have my earbud in. Fucking goddamn assholes. Oh, come on. There we go.
Perfect. Is that a breeze to do?
Yeah, pretty easy. The hardest part is these ratchet wrenches don't fit because the shoulder of the box end is too big.
Gotcha.
Give me your 15/16. I've got a...
He has a Tecton also.
Oh, you got a Tecton also?
Yeah.
The Tecton is too big. I'm wondering if another brand would work.
I found my big one that's small enough. I don't know. The Tecton ones are a little big. I want to say they discontinued that model of ratchet wrench too. Tecton did.
What front you want to be what?
7293 out there. Right outside. Probably the 8120 too. You got the 8120 and the 7290. They're both right over there. That's 8120. Does need a ton of work. No problems out of that 8320. Not a lick. No on the side of the road issues. Starts up every time.
Wow.
Awesome. Hydraulics are flawless. 8120, the hydraulics are spanked on that thing. It's got all kinds of problems.
Oh my goodness.
Needs new cartridges and stuff.
Yay.
So you're taking the pickup over and me taking the tractor? Right.
All right, we'll release our caged bullet. Actually, push that yellow knob in if you still got air, Alex. Yeah, push the yellow knob in. Yeah. There that goes. Get a cap in there. All right. Good to go. All right, so you are ready to go. If I can get up off the floor here, I'll be all right. I need one of them creepers that takes you from a laying position to a standing position. Oh, God. Oh. All right. throw this cage bolt, just throw it in the glove box or something. If you leave them in the frickin' canister, hand me that nut back. It doesn't go to that anyways. All right, you got somebody helping you hook up? No. Grab them vice grips, throw them on Jared's toolbox. You got anybody helping you hook up? I gotta help you hook up?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't do it by myself.
Oh, you can do it by yourself. I'll come up and give you a hand.
Okay.
All right, I'll meet you right up there. All right, we're gonna help her hook up, and we're gonna put some tools away. That should hit it. Keep coming. Yeah, keep coming. All right. All right, so I'll get her lines hooked up. She can crank the landing gear and then she can get moving. All right, she is ready to roll. I had trouble hooking that trailer up the other day too. I think the fifth wheel plates back a little bit, and that little riser in the front of the trailer keeps that fifth wheel down too long in the back. Sarah was agitating. Now she's loading, so she'll be pulling out. We'll get back into the shop. I can now throw paint on the metal parts. We're gonna get that ready for paint, and then we can start working on the interior stuff of that truck. All right, so we've got things somewhat disassembled just before we get ready to paint. I need to drill a couple of extra holes in this. I didn't anticipate on the cross member being in the way. Poor planning. So I had this hole drilled for that, so that's going to be an extra hole. And we need to drill one here and here. Same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to cut another 6-inch channel to go in on the front side of this guy to fill that void in. There's going to be a little bit of a gap here and a little bit of a gap there, but at least if somebody comes down off the top of a trailer or something in a rather bit of a hurry, they can land on there and not slip a leg down in through the frame rail. So I didn't mention or talk much about it, but I ended up getting slightly squished when we started the parlor up back 3 weeks ago yesterday. And I did not go to the doctor or anything, but when I did go to the doctor last time for broken ribs, it's the same pain, it's the same symptoms and all that stuff. They can't do anything for broken ribs, but I'm dealing with a fair amount of pain still on my left side. We were pushing cows into the parlor. There was one that I was pushing on. There was two ahead of her. The two up in front of her turned around. She decided to turn too, and she backed into me, squished me between her and the metal fencing, and then did a pivot and turn. And that was 3 weeks ago. So we're just dealing with some pain. It's just mainly from getting on and off the floor hurts the most, but standing upright I'm fine. So we're just going to keep at it. Nothing we can do about it but just keep going forward. So get this drilled and then get some painting done. All right, so here we go. We've got our pieces that are going to go on the frame, all in black. We used a POR 15 for the base coat, and then we top coated it with a commercial coatings Napa paint. So I've got the different parts of the valve body covered up. We'll put our fittings in this after it is installed. Over here on the bench, we have a tower that we're going to bolt to the floor of the truck in between the seats. It's going to sit in there something like this. We have a buyer's toggle switch for each function. These are detendable toggle switches. In other words, you press these in any one direction except neutral, and they will go into detent in either function. You can get these toggle switches in a spring return to neutral. They're a 4-way switch. However, what we want to have is a detent style switch, so that when we're operating our manure fan, pump rather, or the silage trailer, we're going to want to put this in one direction or the other and lock it in so that we're not having to hold our hand on it. Same thing with the hoist function. You can run either a detent or a non-detent toggle switch for your hoist function. It's either or, but we run all detents on our straight trucks to have a hoist function. I've got a hydraulic gauge here. This one goes up to 5,000 PSI. We'll mount this right here. And what that'll do is it'll give the operator the ability to see not only how much pressure the system is putting out, but it will give him or her the idea of how much manure is left in a trailer, for example, or if there's an issue with something not starting right away, where that hydraulic pump is spiking to. We've got a bulkhead fitting here. That's going to, actually it's going to go into the console, something like this. So that will just have a male JIC port coming up through the top, like so. And then what I've got is a, this gauge is a 1/4 inch, has 1/4 inch pipe thread on it. I'll put this fitting on there, and then I'll be able to put it onto that bulkhead fitting with this JIC coupler. You can get these gauges a couple of different ways. This is a vertical mount. You can get a horizontal mount like this too, but I find it's easiest if we get them vertically, and then if we put that on a 45, the operator can see it. The same thing would happen if we had the 45 on the back, but that just works better like that. 4 screws on this console cover. We can remove that, drill a hole down through the floor. We usually drill like a 2-inch hole. We can run our air lines up through and into these toggle switches. These toggle switches will be surface mounted to the top of this console. So we've got to map this out, get it figured where we want these, and then put our gauge into this console accordingly as well. And then we'll get this mounted down in the floor of the truck, drill the hole in the floor where we're going to run our air lines up through, and then we can run our air lines right back and under this cab back towards the front of this hydraulic tank. We could maybe bring them around this way or just direct them down underneath the tank. Probably could bring them down underneath the tank, bring them up through here and right into the valve body, which is going to be covering up this cross member. And then we've got our pedestals to put on for our electrical connectors and our pogo sticks as well. So I think that pail is done drained. So we'll go ahead and figure out exactly where we want to put this here up in the cab, but we've got enough room in here. This one's got a fire extinguisher mount right there. It would be handy if I looked at Alex's truck so that I had this exactly in the same spot, but I don't believe hers had that heavy duty fire extinguisher mount there. It's got the flare box, which is back here, but we can move that anywhere. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and get things figured out here. All right, we've got our toggle switches, the light for our PTO, and our high pressure or our hydraulic gauge mounted on the lid of this console. So we'll go ahead and get it installed in the truck. We'll drill a hole down through the floor for the air lines, the electrical line for a PTO light. And we've got to run a 1/4 inch hydraulic hose up to this gauge here as well. So usually about 1 3/4 to a 2-inch hole is more than sufficient enough for drilling into the floor. So we've got these toggle switches. We'll run one of these toggles for the spread plate / silage trailer, and the other one will be for a dump trailer if we ever run a dump trailer. We put 2 functions on these hydraulic valves so that we have that option. It's not something we need to add at a later date. Originally, when we set these up to run off of the Power Beyond for the manure trailer and or the silage trailer, which would be a different outlet cover. You can get an outlet cover that has a pressure port here instead of a tank return. And you could run that to the silage trailer or the manure trailer, run just one of these valves, which would be the single acting one, and you wouldn't need the second valve. But if you want to add that later on, it is a pain in the ass to do, unless you have your area set up so that you can add more work sections. So we'll figure out how we're going to mount this in the cab, where exactly, and we'll get some holes drilled here. Okay, so here's where we're at. We got everything painted, and most of this installation is now just about complete. All I have left to do is to run the air lines from the cab, and then I've got a hydraulic line here that goes to the inlet cover on the valve body, and that hydraulic line's going up into the cab. And that's going to be for our pressure gauge. Now I installed everything here last night. I know I talked about putting a bracket on here for this hydraulic filter housing, but this 1.25 inch pipe is strong enough to hold it. I've got my deck plates on. However, this one here, I don't have the right size of aluminum to fix that, but I can fix that with a piece of aluminum, cut it out squarer, and then put a piece in there. However, we'll fix that at a later date. I don't think anybody's going to get their foot down in there. It's going to serve its purpose. So we've got 12-inch junior channel, 6-inch channel, and another piece of 6-inch channel up in front. There's a little bit of an area up front there, but I probably didn't need to put this piece in, because I don't think you're going to have any reason to get up into that area there. But putting oil in the tank or whatever, yeah, it is what it is. So we've got our accessory hookup here for the diller trailers. I took the yellow cord off of the wire harness. The yellow cord has this one top, the ground pin on the yellow cord is blocked out. I changed the terminal that was on the truck. I think that was something special that they used for the fuel trailer. We have a dummy cord, or not a dummy cord, just a separate cord for that diller trailer so that it's not hanging on the truck all the time. Finding out what things look like after things get electrical lines and hydraulic lines and air hoses, what that looks like when it's wound up on a drive shaft. That's another reason to have this decking on here, so that you don't have stuff fall down and get caught on a drive shaft. Now I've got my return line off of the filter housing going back to tank. Then I've got my suction line coming off the tank going up to the hydraulic pump. Now that suction line is about here on the tank. I routed it so that the ball valve and the hose barb fitting kind of went off on an angle. That gets it over to the drive shaft, and it comes nice and neatly down into the pump. We can actually show you that here now. That works very nicely. The one thing that I don't like all that much, it's hard getting down onto this creeper with my chest like that, but we'll get down in here anyways. So we've got our suction line going into the left side of the pump. Mold underneath here. And then, oh, you guys can't see. Suction line coming into the left side of the pump. Oh, come on, flashlight. Alright, trying to do this. Alright. So we've got the suction line coming into the left side of the pump here. That swings up, swings over the top. Oh, magnet's getting caught. Swings over the top of the drive shaft. And then we've got our pressure line coming into the right side of the pump. Now, the one little problem I've got is where that pressure line comes up through. It's kind of in the way of that ball valve, but once I turn that ball valve on, it'll be out of the way of it. So we'll get our air lines hooked up for our toggle switches. And then that'll complete the installation of this unit here. We've got the console is right in the same spot that we had it mounted in that other truck, but we had a fire extinguisher in the way, so we've got to remount that. So we're going to work on getting this installation buttoned up here. All right, so we have this all wrapped up. We have one thing left to do, and that's to see if we have any leaks. The last thing I went and done is I hooked up the air hoses to the two work sections. And we have toggle switches up in the cab. We've got our supply line on here that goes to the gauge that is on the console. I just opened up both ball valves. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fire this up and we'll see if we have any leaks. Alright, so we've got our gauge here, our PTO indicator light. This toggles for the spread function of the trailer or the silage trailer unload, and then this one is for the hoist. So engage our brake. Sometimes it's handy to put it in gear. We've got our PTO on, so our pump is pumping. So we'll go ahead and fire this one quick time. Oh, my gauge is loose. That's not good. Okay, let's try that again. So we've spiked 2,000. We don't want to deadhead it. So we've got hydraulic function. Well, that's down, so that's not going to. So, other than my little oil leak there, we are in good shape. We'll go ahead and now crawl underneath the truck. Make sure we haven't got any leaks down there. I'm gonna check our filter. That's not leaking anything. We don't have anything leaking through our work sections. And we now need to crawl underneath this thing and make sure we don't have any leaks down in below here. Oh. Okay, we are in good shape. I just have to clean that console up. I just forgot to tighten that gauge up because I wanted to get the orientation of that correct. So we'll jump up in there, clean that. Oil off the dash there, or off the little console. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this outside, get it washed off, just wash some of that salt off. And then we are going to start using this here tomorrow. So we'll join up with you once we get this thing washed off. All right, so we have this thing all ready to go. I ran a pressure washer around it quickly. We do have some aluminum bright stuff to spray on. However, we don't have that stuff mixed up. I would have been able to take all of the rust off of that panel there, and then on the other side, just from the exhaust leaking down. So we've got our control panel labeled. That far toggle switch will do the silage trailer and the tanker, and then if we ever get a dump trailer, we'll use this toggle for the hoist. We have 3 toggle switches that were already installed on the truck here. We got our work lights, our spread plate for the diller, and then the lift axle for the diller there as well. So we'll go ahead and use this here. Actually, we're going to use it today. But everything is ready to go on it. I know I'm probably going to get a comment about my 2 90-degree fittings here, and that I shouldn't have it on there because I'm going to reduce flow. When this oil comes through this valve, it has to turn 90 degrees to come up into these fittings. And I know there's probably a little bit of restriction when you have a 90, but this is a 50 gallon a minute pump. We don't have a 8 gallon a minute pump that we're trying to get 10 out of, and realistically only getting about 6 out of them little small dinky pumps. And if you have some 90s incorporated on them, maybe you have a problem with that too. But to some degree, you might get some restriction on a 90, but nothing that we have seen as far as that goes. We have these systems here, and they will outperform any other system out there, even the Gemini pumps. This system will pump a lot more oil than that system. So we are going to get this going here today, and with that being said, that is going to do it for this video. I think I might have this tank a little too full. I thought we were going to deplete the oil down enough to suffice the the tank needs, you don't want to have them full, because if you return hot oil back to a tank, the oil expands. So we might end up blowing a little oil out of the top of the tank, but I've got 70 gallons in it. The system didn't hold as much oil as I thought it would once I charged it up. But with that being said, that is gonna do it for this video. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we will catch you at the next one.